السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
الحمد لله نحمده سبحانه ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى آله وصحابته ومن اتبع سنته بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. اللهم آمين. We are still tracking ayat from the Quran to explain to us the dynamics of life and influential centers that shape how we think, how we make decisions, and how we make choices, and how we treat our reality, and how to overcome challenges. This is what the Quran is here for. It is to help us live this life as a good life, as the Quran says, فَلَنُحْيِيَنَّهُ حَيَاةً طَيِّبَةً. Most certainly anyone, male or female, who follows the guidance of Allah, Allah is saying, we will let them lead a good life. What is a good life? It's a life of dhikr, a life of knowledge, a life of experience and learning and wisdom, and practicing all of that all at one time. So in life, we have sources that influence the factors that help us make decisions. We have sources of knowledge, we have sources of wisdom, we have sources of experience, but they are not all the same. So now the question is, what is the most important influence that we have in our life? Who has more power over our life than all else? Definitely it's Allah. Allah is the one who put everything together to make this life what it is. He has more control, He has more knowledge, He has more wisdom than all else combined. But the Quran does not tell us you are only living under the influence of Allah. You could be open for other sources of influence, both inside you and outside you. Which means we are open, we are vulnerable for influences other than Allah in our life. So the Quran talks to us about one of those sources, as we know, the shaitan. And the shaitan has been here from the beginning. Before our existence, he was there with the angels when they received the news, where Allah told them, I am going to set a Khalifa on earth, a successor, a vicegerent creature, different creature than both of you, angels and devils. Both jinns and angels were there. So the angels expressed their views, but Satan received it in silence. And when Allah ordered Satan and angels to bow down to Allah, facing Adam, to recognize his importance and his role on the earth in this life, definitely the jinn leader, Iblis, was not happy. And he showed envy and arrogance as the two basic motives that made him not wanting to obey Allah, while he recognized Allah for who He is. So he was not oblivious. So how the Quran describes his rejection is فَأَبَى وَاسْتَكْبَرَ وَكَانَ مِنَ الْكَافِرِينَ. He refused the order, he acted in arrogance, and he ended up becoming one of the disbelievers. In reality, the first disbeliever in the creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was Iblis. So when a human refuses to recognize Allah for who He is and submit to His will and obey His commands, the human becomes a devilish human, which means a human who is acting like a devil. Hence, the Quran speaks to us about shayateen al-ins, the human devils, shayateen al-jinn, the jinn devils. And devils is an expression of rebellious creatures, those who rebel against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or refuse to recognize His existence or His power or our obligation to obey Him. So Allah tells Adam that this guy is your enemy. So let him not delude you, lest he would get you out of paradise and you will suffer. فَلَا يُخْرِجَنَّكُمَا مِنَ الْجَنَّةِ فَتَشْقَى. Directing the command and the instructions to Adam. Why? Because Eve was created as the best form of companion to give company to Adam and to receive from Adam reciprocal company, love, care, and support. This is the formula that Allah tells us, that He created Eve to give company and comfort to Adam. This is in Surah Al-A'raf. And in Surah Al-Rum, to give company and comfort to each other. لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا. So both of us are in need of a source of comfort. So Eve is supposed to be the source of comfort for Adam, and Adam is supposed to be a source of comfort for Eve. And when they act differently, which means contrary to the instructions and the plan of Allah, they become a source of discomfort and frustration and pain for each other. The reality is, and ask yourself, could anybody be happy when their spouse is not happy? When you enter your home and your wife is not in good mood, do you feel great? Do you feel happy? Of course. You start asking, what did I do? What could I do? Whoever did anything, what happened? You want to question. The same thing when your husband comes from outside and he's not showing any happiness or pleasure, you feel something is wrong. And you start asking the same questions. What did I do? What could I do? What happened? So that level of concern is mutual, and the more you focus on the comfort of each other, the more comfort you get from each other. But here's the problem. We all as humans, men and women, are selfish creatures. We are more able and more focused on our comfort, our rights, our expectations than those of our spouses. And this is the root of how our dynamics of relationships are shaped. It is by how we situate ourselves in our relationship. So when the husband says, I am the man of the house, I spend, I bring money, I did this and that for her, why isn't she so grateful? Why isn't she so respectful? What is he doing? He is counting his favors upon the family and discounting the reciprocal favors of the family on him. This is the big deal. This is the big flaw in how we can structure our life, because we are centering our expectations only on our feelings and needs, and as such, we don't see how could we be the comfort zone for our spouses. And the Quran is telling us, you are not completely as dependent as you used to be before marriage. When you were a bachelor, man or woman, before marriage, you manage your life any way you want, more or less. And if family objects, you whine, you cry, you throw tantrums, and parents most of the time oblige. They give you what you want. So we get used to getting what we want. And if parents refuse to give us what we want as children, here comes the childhood unmet needs that come to influence how we think about what marriage should be like. So those of us who grew up with unmet childhood needs, they end up demanding that their spouse now not only has to meet our expectations, but he has to compensate us for whatever needs that have not been met when we were children. This is a lot of burden to put on the shoulder of your spouses. Your spouses can barely help you with what is going on, but they cannot help you recover, because what you need to recover is beyond the role. none of us necessarily is married to a psychologist or psychiatrist to figure out what did we need and how they deal with us and how they adjust their life to meet us. So instead of demanding your spouse to fulfill your childhood unmet need, ask yourself, what about their own childhood unmet needs? If they are not struggling with their own unmet needs from childhood, then maybe they can recognize some of your pain and some of your needs. But the Quran is telling us you are the support system for each other. You are the closest, most intimate two people in any relationship, including your relationship with your parents. The spouse is your most intimate and closest supposed companion, friend, support system, the only human being that understands you without you talking is supposed to be your spouse. So when you start your life with your spouse with very high expectations, without figuring out what they can do and what they cannot do, then it is your problem. It is a problem that you're laying down on their shoulder. So the Quran is telling us it is on you to be the second and the comfort for your spouse, and it is on your spouse to try to figure out how to become your own comfort zone and your own support system. So the role of the spouses with each other is not to let the shaitan define their needs and their expectations. Make your needs as limited as possible to get comfortable as soon and as much as possible. But the more you expand your expectations, it is like if you set 10 criteria for the future spouse that you aspire to have, you have to match them with at least 10 expectations that you should deliver on to your spouse. But if you only think about your expectations and erase or ignore what your spouse could be having of expectations, you will be heading into an unequitable partnership. You will be living in your own head, and they will be living in their own head. The Quran is saying, pay attention. There is another element that influences your life. And he's living with you 24/7, and he is bent on breaking that bond of marriage, to break the family, to destroy the society, and to destroy the community. So we have to be careful. That element, that source of influence, the Quran defines as إِنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ لَكُمْ عَدُوٌّ فَاتَّخِذُوهُ عَدُوًّا. Satan is your enemy. He is there to destroy you. Why did you, Allah, give Satan the power to influence us? Allah answers and says, إِنَّهُ لَيْسَ لَهُ سُلْطَانٌ عَلَى الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَلَى رَبِّهِمْ يَتَوَكَّلُونَ. He has no power or influence on those who believe in Allah. So what does believe in Allah here mean? It means those who are living by the book, those who let the book format and shape their expectations of themselves in each role of their life, and their expectations of everybody else around them who interacts with them in this life. So when we are led by the book, we think correctly, and we limit and trim the fat and excesses of our expectations to what our spouses are capable of doing. So if you think that your marriage is winning the lottery without account or responsibility, you're mistaken. If you think that your spouse is a God-like source to take care of every need of you, then you are badly mistaken. Your expectations will never be met from that marriage. So, here is the first time the shaitan is mentioned in the Quran, telling us that the shaitan is the one who drove our parents out of paradise. But what did he use? He used what they want. He used their expectations, and he blew this out of proportion. He told Adam and Eve, هل أدلك على شجرة الملك وملك لا يبلى? Should I tell you about the tree of eternity? If you eat from it, you will never die. And a kingdom that never perishes. So he can shape our expectations from each other, and as such, he can cause both of us to fail into his trap. Why is this important to understand? It is because part of our life dynamics. There is this kind of element, Satan, his knowledge about us, his knowledge about our feelings, his knowledge about our wants and desires, his knowledge about how we want to go about our desires, and his knowledge of what Allah expects of us to deserve the favor of Allah and the blessings of Allah in this life and in the hereafter. And out of his envy and arrogance, he acted against Allah. Why shouldn't we expect him to act against us? And Allah is telling us clearly, he is your enemy. So, how do we tie all of this and overcome this kind of challenge? We cannot get rid of the shaitan. We cannot block completely the whispering and interference of the shaitan in our thoughts, in our life, in our expectations, even in our feelings. You know, if you have a friend who's always inciting you against anyone else, do you think your relationship with that one else is going to be better? If I keep telling you that friend of yours is bent on destroying your life, he wants you to lose your job, to leave your wife, to lose your kids, to lose your housing. If I keep saying this to you, even if you don't believe me completely, doesn't this influence how you think? The minimum is you will start doubting your friend. And that's all what the shaitan wants us to do. That's the first step. Once you start with suspecting the closest intimate source of support for your life and for your mission and for your faith, once you start suspecting, everything else falls in place for the shaitan. He will start dictating to you what questions to ask, what tracks to follow, and he will even tell you how you should be cautious, how you should be protective of yourself and your interests. So you start acting with your spouse as your enemy, not your friend. But what happened is the shaitan has succeeded in turning you as the enemy of your own spouse. Once you listen to him, you succumb to his temptations. So how did the shaitan make Adam and Eve fall in his trap? He used their desires. So what is the benefit of this piece of information? To succeed in any relationship, if you want to nurture any relationship, before you question your companion, your friend, your spouse, your child, your parent, question your thoughts about them. Because that's where everything starts. My thoughts about my spouse will shape my ideas about who they are, what they are up to. And this will also drive how do I shape my relationship with everybody. So look at this. فَأَزَلَّهُمَ الشَّيْطَانُ عَنْهَا. The shaitan barely made them slip. What is the slip? They did not run out of paradise. They did not step out of paradise, but he made them slip into his fold instead of staying in the fold and the protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what is the shaitan doing? The shaitan is recruiting supporters and audience to follow him. إنما يدعو حزبه ليكونوا من أصحاب السعير. He is only rallying and inviting his party so that they also become the companions of the blazing hill. This is part of the dynamics of our life. And as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told Adam and Eve, now اهبطوا منها بعضكم لبعض عدو. So instead of the peace you had with your wife, now you have fights. Simple discussion turns into complicated argument, from argument to dispute, from dispute to clash, from clash to lifelong war that ends in nothing but death or divorce. So it matters whom do we listen to. It matters whose words matter for us. Whose influence do we like? Do we like what Allah offers us? Or are we so selfish that we only like what we want to like no matter what? Or are we willing to give up what we like and trust what Allah promises? This is the formula. The choices is not only between you and your spouse, and the fight is necessarily not between you and your spouse. Your fight is against her devil, and her fight is against your devil. But if you cooperate and go back to the basics, that we are in this union to make Allah pleased with us and to attain His favor in this life and the next, then our cooperation will help us defeat the tricks of the devil. So when the Quran says, وَقُلْنَا اهْبِطُوا بَعْضُكُمْ لِبَعْضٍ عَدُوٌّ, go down. So long as you're listening to the shaitan, you will be enemies to each other. It is not what Allah meant for us. What Allah meant for us is that we are second for each other. We are pleasure and happiness and comfort for each other. But what the shaitan wants us is to turn us into enemies against each other so that